Red-soled shoes, an icon of fashion around the world, and signature of the French designer Christian Louboutin. A staple of the runway, they've also taken over popular culture, from Sex and the City to the world's biggest stars. Born in 1963 in Paris's 12th arrondissement with three sisters, fashion was Christian's calling. As a teenager, he traveled to Egypt and India, returning to Paris with a portfolio full of sketches. In 1991, he opened his first store in the capital, growing the brand to 150 boutiques around the globe. And it's not just shoes, he's expanded into purses, wallets, cosmetics, and fragrances. Today, on Leaders with Lacqua, we meet Christian Louboutin. Christian Louboutin, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders with Lacqua. What do you see yourself as? Artist, creative, or shoemaker?
Well, first, I'm really a shoemaker. And then after, I would say I consider myself as an artisan, a luxury artisan. Artist, definitely no, I wouldn't say that.
So do you remember the first time where you decided that shoes would be your trade?
Well, this is a long time ago because I've been starting designing shoes when I was probably around 10, 11, 12 or something like that, around these days, and so, which is more than 40 years. But I remember starting to sketch shoes, not thinking that it would actually be a job, but it was more of a hobby. And then I remember the moment where I thought, wow, that could actually be a nice job to do. And that was years after.
Why shoes?
Shoes, because I always wanted, one of the first things that I always loved was showgirls, musical, and cinema, and theater. But one of the things that I was born and raised in Paris, and the thing that I was doing with my best friend from school when I was 12, 13, 14, is to go to see shows in Paris, second act, because in general, when you see a show in Paris, there is a second act, but between the first act and second act, you go outside and then you come back and nobody's asking for your ticket. So with my friend Tuan, we were like, okay, sneaking to second act. And so we've been seeing every single plays, every single shows possible. And my favorite thing was to actually see musical, especially when, you see a play, the second part of the play, you haven't been to the first part. You sort of don't know. It takes a while to sort of understand and to fabricate the story, understand the characters, etc., which is great. For the brain, it's actually a very, very good thing. But when you're a bit tired or if you just want to have fun, music hall was easier. So my favorite thing was always that. And so I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something for these girls and the musical girls. And so I thought just shoes, because I was seeing them like a little bit like birds of paradise, exotic birds with all the fur, etc. So the only thing is that, birds don't have shoes, and I could see that they had shoes. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do shoes for this bird. So really my first thing was to design shoes for dancers, musical dancers, dancers in general, performers.
And then when did you have the idea of putting the red sole on them?
That's much after. So I started to work for showgirls, and then I started to work in the fashion industry, and then I started my company in 91, the end of 91, and the red sole arrived in 93, quite quickly after I started to do my company, actually.
Okay, so why do you think you're so successful when many of your competitors have not been?
It's a difficult question to answer to, but I would say that I'm coming from a family strong with women. I have 3 older sisters, I had a lovely mother and no brothers. So I was really the only male, if one can say, figure, apart from my father. And so I was really brought up almost like in a harem with a lot of women. So I think that from an early age, I've been very, not confronted because it's not, but I've been very at ease in the company of women, and I know women very well, so my work is dedicated to women with the biggest respect and the love that I have for all of them. So I guess that's one thing which has been important in my story.
Okay, so when you first started with that red sole, did something happen? Did it become more desirable? I mean, that's really what you've been known for so many years.
Well, the red sole has transformed my let's say, my work as a club in a way. I remember people in 93, 94, women were coming to me and saying, you know, we make part of this little club and sometimes we just do this and then people do understand, etc. And then after, so it was a little bit of a club at the beginning and then it became very quickly a sign of recognition of my shoes and then it became a trademark. But it's been, you know, little by little in a way.
Do you think you would have been so successful without the red sole?
I think the red sole definitely, of course, participates to my work, but also to the fame of my shoes because it's instantly recognizable. But then, you know, the design is very important. But definitely, when you have such a strong sign of recognition, it participates to your work, yeah.
I mean, the business is quite incredible because you're never on sale. None of your items are ever on sale. The wholesale is held very tightly, I would say. Is that part of your success?
I think that, you know, when you do something which is luxury, you have to be careful and you have to treat everything in that way, you know. So you're not bargaining things, you're not throwing things, etc. It needs to be well done. I have people taking care of that seriously. And yes, you have to be serious with what you do.
Coming up, Christian Louboutin on the legal fight over the red soles.
To have to fight people who have those huge companies who put you 27 lawyers on your back for something which is yours is very stressful.
Groundbreaking, yet simplistic. Christian Louboutin first designed his trademark shoe in 1993, creating the red bottom using an assistant's nail polish. And after a legal fight, Europe's highest court ruled he has a right to trademark the look, protecting his designs from imitators. But how do you come up with such a landmark design, and what kind of innovation does it take to rise to the top of the fashion industry?
At some point you had to fight for the trademark, right, for the red sole.
Yeah.
Was that stressful?
Very stressful, very stressful. Especially, you know, we are a small company in a way, and to have to fight people who have those huge companies who put you 27 lawyers on your back for something which is yours is very stressful. I mean, I wish I wish it didn't happen. Everything which happened to me is a lesson in a way, bad or good, and once it's done, and you're sort of happy. I mean, I'm happy about it. That thing I could have definitely avoided, but it's done.
Did you realize at the time when you started the company that you would become so successful and actually so big?
No. You know, when I started the company, I wanted to have a shop in Paris, which is my hometown, and I wanted to do pretty shoes for pretty girls. That was my goal.
And now you look back and you say, actually, I still make pretty shoes, but for many more women.
Yeah, absolutely.
But have you changed as a person, as a creative?
I think that, you know, work makes you change, and everybody changes, you know. You get 10 years after, you know, hopefully you've been changing, but deep, no, nothing changed. I mean, nothing changed. My work is I work with a maximum of passion and enthusiasm, and this has completely stayed. And so that's been the most important thing. And again, the most important part of my work is to design shoes, and I keep that momentum, you know, several times a year, and that's really the most important thing. So all of this structure has remained the same. Then yes, the company grew, so it's a different story. We have a lot of people now working, etc., different offices in different places. So the structure has changed, but really sort of me, the way I'm working. I had a Vespa when I started. Okay, it got stolen. I had another Vespa, but I'm still on my Vespa in Paris. So things really, really important things to sort of maintain, put you grounded, hasn't changed.
But you have more than 150 stores around the world. How difficult is it to make sure that each is representative of you and what you want it to be?
You know, there is one thing, I always loved to travel. Always did travel a lot, intensely, and always loved to travel. So when, for instance, talking of the shops that we have in the world, when the collection is set up, I look at the collection and I sort of see some shoes and I'm thinking, this is going to be very nice in these colors, etc. It promises me to keep on actually flying to different countries immediately, thinking, you know, the collection is vast. So basically you take a part of the collection and it will go in Asia. That part will go more like in hot countries, sandals, This place is more for like fixed cities in America. You know, it sort of depends. The whole collection sort of is global, but then after you detach some of the things and there and there and there. So it permits me to actually, to keep on traveling. So it's a nice way to, so basically what I'm saying is that I'm editing the collection.
Yeah.
I don't do shoes thinking special markets or things like that. My design is free. But then after, when it's editions, and suddenly it's actually funny to think of where it's going to go.
But you're also very involved in some of the shops. In Miami, for example, you actually put there some old columns that you'd found elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm involved in the construction of the shop. Every shop has also a feeling of the city where it is, or also things from the city, or things that as a French person I think is a reference to a city or to a culture or to a country. So I'm definitely involved. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm a frustrated decorator, because I'm not frustrated. I decorate my own houses, so it's all fine. But I love objects. I've always been collecting things. So I have things that I buy anywhere I am, where I am, and then I store them and I wait that it goes to a place. So for instance, those columns, I've been buying those columns, which are in fibre de verre, glass fiberglass, and I've been having this column for probably 20 years. And Miami store has been there for less than 4 years, something like that. So I've been having them, and I'm tenacious. I knew that it would go in a perfect place at one point, at some point. And now it is, yeah.
Are you close to your customers?
Yeah. The first, I'm easily close to my customer in the sense of for the two first years, so 92 and 93, I was selling in the store. So I was selling in my first store in Paris. So when I was not in Italy where the shoes were made, I was always in the store. So I sort of understood that, you know, at the very end, everything is dedicated to one person, which is your client. So I always love to speak to my clients, especially the first year when nobody knew that I was also the designer. I was a very good salesman, and nobody knew that the salesman was a designer. So it was very interesting to see why people would favor this versus that, etc.
When I was speaking to your team, I asked them, actually tell me something that we don't know about Christian Louboutin. And they said, well, one of the things is that, you know, sometimes he goes to sign things, either shoes or things like that, and customers get really emotional. Why do you think there's this emotional attachment? You
know, I think that shoes, for some reason, I mean, I'm doing different things, you know, the leather good, bag, etc. I've been taking care of beauty industry, but shoes is really my core thing, and shoes has a very strong link with intimacy. And so, for instance, when I'm signing shoes of clients, they often start to speak, you know, their first shoes. And I remember this woman told me, you know, you remember in your life, everybody remembers where they were when Michael Jackson died, 9/11, you have things. And she says, me, I have all these dates, but I also remember the first time I wore a pair of your shoes. And I was very, 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 very emotionally taken by that, because I could understand that, you know, it's important. So I see a lot of women are quite attached to what it means, the symbol it gives to them, the empowerment it gives to them, or the first moment, or, you know, what the relationship that they have, which their own intimacy in a way.
Coming up on Branching Out from Shoes, Christian Louboutin talks the challenges involved in expanding his brand.
I'm conscious that if you want to do your job well, you have to concentrate, and I cannot spread myself everywhere all the time.
Art, a painting, a sculpture, maybe even shoes. This year, Paris, Palais de la Porte Dorée, opened an exhibition dedicated to Christian Louboutin's iconic designs called L'Exhibitionniste. A pair of his stilettos have even been on display at the New York's Met. But just like any other artist, to produce a new work, he needs inspiration. So where does he find it, and what does he say to critics of his high heels?
There's an exhibition in Paris dedicated to you.
Yeah.
What does it make you feel? What do you want people to get out of it?
You know, it's it's the exhibition, which is now. It started at the 25th of February. So the exhibition is around my work, and it's a celebration, let's say, of my work, but also a celebration of collaboration and work that I've been doing with other people. So I'm including artists, I'm including artisans there, and artists and artisans really. And then also it's a celebration of, let's say, different influences that I could have had, that I'm having, so objects, etc. So things which have always been important for me. So it's not only my work, let's say shoes, but it's a more opened exhibition.
Stilettos are now politicized, right? You're either not a feminist or you're too much of a feminist. Do you ever feel like we shouldn't put politics in shoes?
You know, it's funny because when I was a kid at school, and there was this big trend of like flat shoes and boots, etc. And I always loved every forms of shoes. Apart from clogs, I've always loved flat, high heel, etc. But that was a time where, in 70s, where women would not wear high heels. And I already loved high heels. And I remember saying, because there was this discussion, kids discussion, like, if you're on a high heels, you have to be stupid. And you had all the 70s songs, you're such a stupid girl, all that type of songs, like, sort of against that. And my first and only reference was Tina Turner. I said, Tina Turner is always on high heels, and she's a role model like no one else. So, you know, that was my only answer to that. I said, how can you criticize people thinking? Just look at Tina Turner. She's a representation of someone who's been driving her life, who's been an incredible artist. She's always been on her heels, and she stands by her heels. So, you know, and again, I just don't want to do the apology of high heels. You know, everything is possible. My first shoes were actually flat shoes. I always designed flat shoes. So the perception of work of people is also very much transported by, you know, just one category of person, then a second. And but I have a passion for every shoes, basically.
Yeah, we were talking about, you know, the I guess the model of the shoe, but also the color, the nudes, right? How many nude colors do you have?
Right now, it's 8 shades of nudes, going on 9.
Are those your best sellers?
It's interesting because the nudes, I started to do a collection of nudes in 2012. And so I started with 5 shades of nudes, and now going all the way to 8 and 9. And it's very interesting because there is by country, it really reflects the complexion of the skin. For instance, if you take India, which is a subcontinent, it's interesting to see that the colors that we call the color number 4 and number 5, which are already sort of dark. So south of India has darker skin, and we sell more the color after, which is number 6, so darker. North of India, where the complexion goes from dark to less dark, we sell the color which is less dark. So it's really attached to the fact that nudes goes to your color of your skin, and it disappears. That's why it's called nudes, you know. It disappears. It's not a color, it's a shade which is dedicated to disappear on your skin.
Do you know who your best client is? Or how many best clients do you have?
You know, the very nice thing is that I get to meet a lot of people, and a lot of people are saying, I am your biggest client. And sometimes a person says, I have over 9 pairs of shoes of you. And then someone else is going to say, I have over 400 pairs of you. And so I love the idea that, you know, if you like the work of someone, you feel dedicated and engaged to it. So, you know, according to who you are, according to your possibilities, you know, you're the best with 9, and you can be the best with 400. It doesn't make a difference. You know, the important is that people feel great and happy with what I'm doing.
How have consumer trends changed in the last 15, 20 years? Are we talking about stilettos, but are there certain parts of the world that buy more of your shoes than others?
You know, I think that there is not a global, let's say, Louboutin customer. It really depends on where you live. It depends on your climate, the heat, etc. And then after, some styles can come back. But the consumer has changed. No, I mean, what has changed is the habits. You know, what I would say is that women are not so letting themselves being dictated by trends and things. You know, more and more people sort of have a feeling of how they feel good or how they look good, and so that has changed. I have the feeling that, you know, what was imposed in a way by often magazines and things, etc. Now people have their most of the time have a point of view. So they decide, yes, it fits, yes, it doesn't fit for me. And so that would be the change. But then after, you know, I think that a woman works, so she has different moments in her day. She has a moment where she wants to feel empowered. She may want to have a pair of heels, and then she has to run. She will have another pair of shoes. You know, you have a lot of shoes corresponding to different time of the day and different time of the life of a woman.
When we look at your business, so there's women's shoes, there's men's shoes, there's handbags, and there's also beauty. How will that change in the next 5 to 10 years? Will you focus more on men's or handbags, or?
You know, the fun part of my work is to let myself going with the flow in a way. I did not think of doing men's shoes, for instance, when I started with women's shoes. And I ended up doing men's shoes just sort of for me, for one party, for a few friends of mine. And then I really started because a singer, a young pop star, asked me, I didn't know him, I knew of his music, but I didn't know him. He asked me to do shoes for his shows. He was touring. And then because of that, I started to do a collection. He didn't need a collection. And then it became the first collection that I did for men. And then so I just entered that business, that section of the business, just as simple as that, you know, because I had a project for one person. So I let myself being carried by what happens with what I'm living, the people I meet, etc. I don't really have like those very, very specific type of long-term project. So to tell you where I'm going to be in 10 years, that's very complicated.
What about handbags?
Handbags, I started again a while ago, but I sort of wanted the handbags to be, you know, like from the same family. Let's say you have a sister, you would have a sister, you know, I meet your sister, I can see where is not the gemelity, but what you would have in common in terms of family. But if you are not with your sister, you are an entire person. So I wanted the same thing for the bags, to have their own identity, but when you put the two together, there is something in common, which is attention to details, quality. That's one thing that I want to keep. But otherwise, it's almost is separated.
But you have a very romantic way of speaking about business. But do you ever worry that actually there's going to be, that you do too many things? Or do you not worry about it?
No, because let's say if you think about it, I started my company 28 years ago. And so it's very little what I sort of branching out. You know, I got so many proposals, some sort of crazy, some quite interesting, but I'm conscious that if you want to do your job well, you have to concentrate, and I cannot spread myself everywhere all the time.
Christian Louboutin, thank you so much for joining us.
Merci.